Hey guys, we're here with Harley Wallace. Harley Wallace is a firefighter in San Diego. He has been working with tortoises and turtles since he was 16 years old. He's a proud member of the TTPG, and we're proud to have him here today to introduce him to the group. So welcome, Harley.
Hello, welcome. Excited to be here.
I do apologize. We're probably going to hear a cat crying because it wants to bother me. So I apologize.
On my end, you might have a 5-year-old run through. You might have a baby crying. So
It's all good.
a dog barking.
So Harley, we're glad to have you here, and we're excited to know a little bit more about you. You're a firefighter. You're married, and your wife is a vet, correct?
Yes. Yep. And I have a 5-year-old and a 5-week-old.
Oh God.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, a busy house right now.
Even here is amazing.
A busy house, but it's all good.
Have you got any sleep yet, or is she keeping you up?
She is not sleeping a whole lot. Yeah, it has not been a very restful 5 weeks. So yeah, it's fun, but there's been a lot of coffee and a lot of nights with a lot of screaming.
Turtles are easier.
But turtles are much easier. Dogs are easier. Yes. Yeah. Been good though. It's yeah. She's a very sweet little girl. She just doesn't like to sleep very well. So we're kind of working through that.
We'll get there.
Yep.
Your gosh, we'll get there.
What's that?
It's gonna be a rough 18 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. If you don't mind, I want to talk about your wife a little bit, if that's cool.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So her being a vet, I would assume that her background is not turtles and tortoises. Has she dipped her toes into the turtles and tortoises for you?
Oh yeah. So she doesn't practice exotic animals regularly. She's a general practice vet, but she does love turtles and tortoises. And she actually, during vet school, we were dating when she was in vet school, so we were together then. And she did do a couple of rotations where she got to work a bit with exotics, and not quite to a specialty level, but she did spend a month at the Turtle Conservancy on a vet rotation. She spent a month at SeaWorld in Orlando. She got to do actually some rehab work with sea turtles and manatees, and so that was a pretty cool experience. And so yeah, she did. She had some elective rotations where she did a couple other things just to get a little more exposure to them. So she doesn't regularly see them at her practice, but she's pretty good at taking care of our animals for us, and has a few connections with exotic vets when she needs to reach out for a consult or get a little more info. So
and I'm told she has 2 specific turtles herself.
She has a red-eared slider and a common map turtle that's in or false map turtle, I think, that's in my pond behind me that she got when she was in undergrad, and raised up in a small tank, and then they went to the pond as they got bigger. So, yeah.
We've all had regular sliders. I think it's just part of the game.
Like
there's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple in my pond. You occasionally get given them by people that find them, and I've taken a few in. So yeah, I have, I think, 4 red-eared sliders living with my 2 Hamiltoni in my outdoor pond. So
Nice.
they all get along.
I have 2 albinos, and they're with my my common musks. So I left them out I never left the albinos out over the winter. I did leave 2 regular ones outside just to see if they could. Horrible saying that, but I did. I left them outside to see if they would make it through the winter, and they did. And I was like, oh, great, I can leave the albinos out there. But I love these 2 turtles, so I just don't leave them out. So I bring them in every year, even though I shouldn't. I should leave them out there. So
yeah.
Chernobyl and Hiroshima, my 2 natural disasters. So what would you like to talk about here tonight, Harley?
Wow. Well, yeah, I probably have met a lot of people that are on the call because I try to make it, and I'm fortunate being in San Diego, TTPG is only about a 5-hour drive for me. So I think I have made it to everyone since I joined roughly 11 or 12 years ago. And So I know I've had a chance to meet a lot of people, but yeah, it's fun to just get a chance to sit down and talk to you guys.
How long have you been
So,
going to the conferences?
I think my first one was 2014. I was trying to think of that today. Or was I don't remember if it was 2013 or 2014. I I was I had gotten a couple of hatchling Egyptians from someone that was breeding them in Texas, and as I was trying to do some more research on them, I came across the issue of the Batagra that had the Egyptians on the cover. I believe it was on the cover, and I think that was 2012 or 2013, and that was my first time I had heard of TTPG. The conference was coming up. It was in you know, I was close, and so I didn't know anybody going. I didn't know anybody there, and thought I'll just drive to Arizona and go check it out. And met Michael at that first one, and just have met more people over the years, and keep going back. So
It's a great community. Just how very welcoming they are. Wendy, last year was your first year, right?
yes. hmm
Did you feel out of
And
place?
I was very nervous to go, but once I got there, everyone is so welcoming. You get treated like an old friend, even if you're new. So I loved it.
yeah,
It's a great community.
Yeah.
I was kind of the exact same. I was a new person that sat in the back, and at first was didn't know anybody, and then after one night of hanging out with unfortunately passed, but most of you guys remember John Green. One night of hanging out with John Green at the bar across the street at the sports bar, and then you know everybody. And so yeah, it's been a good group of people, and I've really enjoyed everybody I've had the chance to meet. And just like last weekend, I was actually in Chico and had a chance to go to dinner with Michael and meet his wife and hang out up there in Chico with Michael. So
Michael does an amazing job of making new people feel welcome and included. I think every single day he reached out. If you don't have lunch plans, come have lunch with us if you're not doing anything for dinner. So I never felt lost or like I, didn't because I didn't know people that I didn't have anything to do. He made sure that, I always had someone to be with, which was awesome.
Same when my first year. So I didn't know anybody but Anthony, and granted, I knew Anthony was bigger than life, but yeah, it was yeah. They invited you everywhere. Like, hey, yeah, come here, come there, and it's just been amazing. This coming year will be my 4th year, and I really enjoy it. So it's definitely one trip I plan around. So
Yeah. So I do know something I want to talk about, if you don't mind starting with that. Your backyard is amazing. It is so beautiful and so peaceful. I want to know, with all the hardscape beds and ponds made of pavers, did you repurpose things that were already there, or did you build that with turtles in mind?
So I kind of started the yard from scratch with turtles in mind, and you can kind of see. I'll move the phone briefly. So I'm sitting on my back patio, so that's kind of across. Look across my backyard, and no, I actually designed it really for a lot of the animals that I had at the time, and then really had an interest in keeping. And I'm kind of fortunate. My wife was very supportive, but I got my first small group of Egyptians because I was in a small apartment in the beach community. When I was in high school, I worked for Petco. I got a sulcata because that's what everybody did in the 1990s. This was one that somebody gave me. It briefly lived in a college apartment with me, and then went back to my parents' house there in East San Diego County. So I had my tortoises at my parents' house. I had kind of wanted to work with something else that, in my apartment. I was down in the beach and got the small group of Egyptians. And my wife had that red-eared slider, a map turtle, but she ended up getting a small group of spotted turtles when she was in vet school that she had in her apartment up near Los Angeles, where the vet school is at. So, we got married, and it's kind of funny, but I really, as we were looking at houses and places we wanted to be, the ability to make the yard kind of what we wanted to house the animals that I had at my parents, and some small ones that I knew were going to get bigger, was a big factor in it. And so it didn't have anything really when we bought it. And actually our house really didn't either. It was a pretty small rundown home. So it took a couple of years and quite a bit of work. But, you know, Mark mentioned I worked for the fire department. And so I had a lot of days off, weekdays off. So that was a lot of time just spent digging and building and digging. And took a little while to kind of slowly get things together. And it's still a work in progress. So what Mark's showing now is my spotted turtle pond, and it's at the base of the stairs that go. The yard's kind of terraced, and so I have those stairs on the right that go down to the bottom level, and it's kind of a 2-level pond, and I have a small group of North American spotteds that live down there. I find babies in the pen. If I miss eggs, they ground incubate and hatch there, and it's been a really good setup for them. They've done well there, so.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
so
really beautiful.
But it was funny, Wendy, because I was kind of walking. We'd walk houses with the real estate agent. Some of them didn't quite have the right sun-facing area or not a big enough yard. And I talked to them about like, no, the big tortoises won't do okay here. I won't have enough room for this licata pen. And so the real estate agent got to kind of know about what made a good tortoise yard after a couple properties. And yeah, we were fortunate. We have it's not a giant yard, but it's one that has enough, functional room to do some of the things we wanted. And, what's kind of cool is, how much you saw, but we have a built-in barbecue and a fire pit, and I'm sitting on our deck. So it's also a very functional yard. My kid's swing set is in the Aldabra enclosure. So he swings and the tortoise comes over and he sits down and hangs out with him. And, that's his buddy. He calls it his best friend. And so it's functional, and it's not just enclosures. It just kind of everything, and it's still a work in progress. Yeah, that's Connor. I think he was 3 in the picture, 3 or 4. He's cut his hair a little shorter, but he's 5 now, and that's Yoshi, who he calls his best friend, and he picks grape leaves and goes and feeds him, and that might be a loquat he's feeding him now. It's probably a fig. There's a fig tree too, but
that's pretty awesome. It's one of the few species that I would love to work with. Just I don't have space for it. So that's so cool.
It's been a very cool. I raised that up from a very small tortoise, and it's been cool to raise him up. My son really likes him. When he was about 3, I started to explain one day that he was going to have to take care of him one day. It was going to become his tortoise, and he just started bawling and crying. And I was like, Bud, what's the matter? And he said, I don't want you and Mom to die. And so I realized 3 might be too soon to have the inheritance talk with your kid. Maybe should have waited a couple of years, but
wait until he's 13.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh God, you're not going to leave all these turtles and tortoises to me, are you?
Maybe 8 or 9, but it's funny. He's 5 now, and he'll flip through an animal book, and he knows species of turtles and tortoises. When my wife just had our baby, my mom picked him up from school and brought him home and stayed here, and he showed my mom how to lock it's still a little bit cooler at night here, so we lock several of the species in at night. So he showed her how to lock them in, how many were in which enclosures. He really loves animals. He's got a very sweet personality, and he loves helping take care of stuff. So
do you have any other pets other than the turtles?
We have 2 they were feral cats that my wife picked up in vet school. One was a stray kitten at the apartment complex where she was staying up in Pomona near LA, where her vet school is at. And the other one was a little kitten that she was supposed to do a spay on, and it wouldn't eat, so she took it home, and then it started eating, and so she decided to keep that one. So we still have the 2 cats. We have a dog. We had a 12-and-a-half-year-old lab mix that we lost in the fall, and then we have a puppy that we recently got. So he came from a lab rescue. He's some kind of shepherd mix. So we have those guys, and then I have 2 fish tanks, and
nice.
And that's our. Oh, actually, too, I have a couple snakes too. I do have a large boa that I got when I was 15 from a pet store that was closing in San Diego. And I got this thing in 1995. It was a full-grown adult, and still hanging out, doing good. So,
wow,
I've got that.
No ball pythons?
No, Never got. Like I said, I worked for Petco in the late '90s, but never got into ball pythons.
I never did the snakes. I did have I shouldn't say never. I had hog noses for a short time, and I traveled for work too much, and I'd come home, and of course they would defecate while I was gone, and the house would just stink. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yep. I mean, yeah, I have tortoises, and yes, they stink. I just find it easier to maintain. The snakes, the musk smell, I was like, yeah, these got to go. I couldn't do it. So
I raised rosy boas when I was a teenager, and my mom didn't like snakes at all. But I bred a lot of rosy boas, and so then I raised mice to feed the rosy boas, and I did that probably from when I was 15 or so for 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
So you have a sulcata, you said. Does he break through the yard?
No, he doesn't anymore. He has a block wall pen.
He's got a block.
So, yeah, I ended up making a full block wall pen for him that keeps him in his place. So yeah.
Nice.
So do you get chilly enough that your Aldabra needs heat at
I
night?
do, yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah. I'm close to the coast, so I get I don't get as cold as inland does, but we still get nights into the lower 40s here. So the Aldabra, the sulcatas have their heated home.
I would love
Separate
to
heated
have one,
homes,
but we do get pretty cold in the winter, and I don't know if I could, I feel bad enough with my redfoots and yellowfoots in their heated houses where they can't come out for days at a time, but at least they have space. I don't know. I'd have to build a separate house for an Aldabra.
Yeah, we don't get that many cold nights. We don't get frost, so we don't get too cold, and it generally she comes out every day.
During the day, yeah.
Yeah, even if it's stormy and stuff, we're into the upper 50s. So it's very mild climate here, which I think is why the Egyptians I've kept and some of the other testudo species, some of the Greeks have done really well because we kind of have that coastal foggy, but then fog burning off and clearing and sunny habitat. So the Aldabra actually I've noticed doesn't like the really hot days.
Really?
We don't get that many of them, but she likes the more cooler, foggy mornings, and then when it gets hot, she goes back into her shed or goes and hangs out under the plants. And yeah, she seems to really be active on the cool, misty, foggy, misty mornings. That's kind of seems to be her sweet spot for cruising around.
So Harley, you brought up Egyptians, and you keep Egyptians a little different than most of us. So I'd love to pick your brain on that one a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
If you guys don't know, Harley has a nice group of Egyptians, and he does a hybrid. He keeps some of them outside during the summer and brings them in during the winter. Is that correct?
So yeah, I've kept I've kept them outside for generally 5 months of the year. Kind of depends on when the nights start warming up a little bit. I have some that I've kept just indoors, but I've also all of my recent hatchlings I've raised outside for most of the year and just put them outside. Put them outside in a covered enclosure, and they do, like I said, they do well here. I think they like the fact that we're pretty mild. We don't get super cold overnight, but we do get a lot of the morning fog, and then the fog kind of burns off as the day warms up. And when I have them inside, I try to simulate that a little bit with foggers and kind of how I keep them inside, so they get a little bit of that as well. And so that's indoors. One of my older groups. You actually see the fogger kind of coming down off the wall there. I would run that on a timer in the morning for sometimes 15 minutes or a half an hour, and just kind of put a blanket of fog over them, and then kind of time it as the heat light's coming on.
These sub-adults?
That was, some sub-adults.
Nice.
Actually, the one front and center, I think, is an adult female, and the other ones are sub-adults.
Very nice. And you have what, 2 breeding colonies?
I do, and then I have a different pair that's kind of, one of them had some health issues, so I have a pair that's off just by themselves in a different area. that she was actually, I thought she was going to lay today. She was nesting kind of as I was getting ready, but hasn't laid yet. So,
So you have a pretty big collection or selection of animals that you're working with. What is your most challenging species that you're working with?
most challenging. That's funny. I have a pair of Hamiltoni, and I don't know if I'd say challenging, but I have not. I've gotten eggs out of them, and everybody says they're the easiest eggs in the world to hatch. I've not had any luck hatching the eggs, and I haven't even seen any real development out of them. So, and that's one of them in my outdoor pond. That's my female, and I know they're of size. They mate all the time because the poor female gets beat up. I have to separate her. She has a good nesting area, and I'm not quite sure. I've brought them indoors for the winter to keep them a little warmer. I've left them outdoors to just let them get cold. I've done some combination of both. I've separated them, I've put them together, and yeah.
They're your stressful ones? They're the ones that aren't doing it for you?
They're just, they seem really healthy and active, and I know she nests and lays eggs. I'm just not sure, exactly what I'm either not doing or not providing them that they want, but
are they young?
No, not really. The female is probably 10 now.
Okay.
The male's maybe a year or two younger. So
I can't give you any advice. Mine were this big, and I just sent them away. So
yeah, so I would say, not that they're stressful. It's just I'm not sure. I feel like I'm missing something with that, with those animals. But I would say the other one I have a group of Flavos that I keep outside, and they do great, but they are just the best at eating their eggs or destroying their eggs. So my number of hatchlings relative to the amount of eggs that those animals lay ratio is very, very poor. But I find more broken eggs than I find intact ones, and I'm guessing they eat some eggs that I don't ever find. So they're cool and they do well, and it's funny. When I walk by, they recognize me and they're on alert and hoping I'm bringing something to throw in, ready to come. They're not shy at all. They're pretty cool turtles.
It's pretty species too, and they're fun, like you said. They're just active and they're alert.
Yeah, people don't think turtles and tortoises have personality, but I think they're kind of personable. Like they kind of look and they recognize you're the guy that brings worms once in a while, and they're not shy at all. They're just hoping there's a worm there for them.
So in the same vein, do you have a species that's your favorite?
Definitely the Egyptians.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're a very unique turtle. They're probably not one of the more, I'd say, personable ones. They're just kind of, but when they're set up and thriving, they have they're like such a routine. I don't know. They have just such a set routine every day, and they're they're just unique. I mean, the little hatchlings that you just showed the picture of the hatchling there that was about 5 grams. And so they're cool. And actually, I find I spend most of my time watching them and, and just kind of trying different things with their enclosures to see what are they the most, what really makes them thrive, or what do they seem most responsive to. So that's one of my hatchling enclosures. And the picture there, so I try to plant sedum and grass in the enclosures. And I use a 50-50-ish mix of either sand and the shredded coconut stuff that I just kind of throw a bunch of water in and get it to looking like dirt, or I just try to use organic dirt. The garden centers have Top Coat, which is an organic, basically I think it's an organic dirt with no fillers in it. And but I mix it with sand to give it a sandier kind of look. And the hatchlings like that one, they don't burrow into it, but they scrape themselves down, and they get to where probably half or 2/3 of their body's covered, and they tend to like to do it at the base of the plants. And they kind of dig into where the soil has a little more moisture to it, and that's just that's how I see my hatchlings a lot when they're not active and cruising. I put hides in for them. They don't tend to go under hides as much. They like that kind of burn their way into the dirt a little bit. And
Little
like I said, and a
scrapes.
lot of times, yeah, scraping their way in. And a lot of times they do it near plants. The adults don't tend to do that as much. Some of my adults do, but I use, I have a lot of palm trees, so I just pull down the palm fronds that makes a nice hide because it's open at one end and it's about the right shape, and they're free. And there's probably 50
Oh,
of
that
them in
looks
my
cool.
yard. And yeah, there's a couple palm fronds. But yeah, the adults, they don't. I think this is a picture I took right after the heat lamp came on. So they all came out to sit under the lamp.
They definitely have a routine. I'll agree. I'll
Yes,
give
but
you that. Like
they're,
first thing in the morning,
So
go under the heat lamp, go eat for a little bit, they'll go hide for a little bit, come back and heat up, eat some more. Kind of a routine for them.
yeah, and most of mine, if I don't feed them pretty early, they're kind of done. Like they don't tend to eat late in the day. It's like if I get home late from work or something where I miss a window to feed them in the morning, they're just kind of done for the day. Um,
Have you noticed them nesting at a certain time during the day? Like mine, they'll start nesting in the morning, and if they don't lay by, I'll say by 2 o'clock, they give up and they'll go to
yep,
bed and start again in the morning.
that's about the same. And I've also kind of learned I don't generally feed them when I see them nesting because a lot of times they'll walk away from attempting to nest and then they won't go back to it. And so if I see that a female's nesting, I won't usually put food in. Sometimes if she's done a couple of days of digging, I'll throw some food in. But the other thing I've noticed with them is if they don't like to lay, at least mine, in dry soil. So like if they're trying to dig and the soil's dry, so it's just filling back in, like kind of the sandy soil mixture is just dry and it's kind of filling the hole back, they generally won't lay in it. I'll have to wet it down a little bit so that their hole kind of holds some form from the wet dirt. And so a lot of times if, the first time they try to nest, if it's dried out, I water the plants that are in there and then I spray them or just pour some water into the dirt sometimes. But sometimes, it'll dry out and they'll try to nest in drier areas. And if that's the case, they won't lay. So, but if I wet it, they'll come back the next day and then they'll lay in the damper soil.
Yeah, I found it too. Like if it's loose soil, they don't like it as much. But if I pack it down that they have to dig, so they can make a cavity, it seems like they're going to do it better for me. So
Yeah, like they want their cavity to hold some shape.
Yep,
So,
I agree with that.
but yeah, I definitely would say they're my that and my Aldabra. I mean, my Aldabra is kind of she comes out and follows you around the yard like a dog, kind of waits for some food, and so those would be my, I guess, favorites.
Have you ever worked with a species that you gave up on that you would never do again?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I've worked with a few other things. I have a nice group of golden Greeks that are outside. They live outside year round here. I do give them a heated house in the winter. And then I recently got a pair of pancakes. That's one of my goldens. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. That's just a beautiful domed animal. Beautiful.
That one's a female that I raised up from a hatchling. And they normally don't look that pretty. I remember because it's pretty dirty and dusty where they're at, but I rinsed her off and realized, wow, that's actually a beautiful animal. So I took some photos. Normally they just kind of look brown covered in dirt. When I rinsed her, I was like, oh, that's pretty beautiful. And I do have a pair of pancakes that I've kept outside about half the year. And last year was the first year I had a male with my female, and so they produced a couple babies. So that was kind of cool.
Pancakes are an interesting species for me. I don't think there's a single right way to keep them at this point. Everyone seems to be doing it a different way, hatching it a different way, temperatures a different way. Like everything I hear about pancakes, it's like, oh, I do this, oh, I do that, I do this, but I couldn't get one person. I couldn't write a book on a pancake that would be right because they seem, oh, you got to diapause the eggs. I don't diapause the eggs. You got to do this. No moisture, very dry, this, that kind of stuff, all over the place, I find. So I have no luck with pancakes. So.
What's funny is just the pair that I have kept, and same with the hatchlings, exactly like my Egyptians, except that there's some slate in there. But as far as substrate temperatures, their outdoor pens are side by side, their indoor pens are side by side. They're in the same incubator with the egg side by side. So,
So you keep the male and female separate?
pancakes?
Yeah.
No, nope.
Oh,
They're together. When they're indoors or outdoors, they're together. And they're generally outdoors here they'll probably go out closer to Memorial Day. Those ones I wait a little longer till my nights are staying consistently at 60. I've heard they probably could take a little colder, but the other thing we get in the spring when the nights are cooler is we also just get a lot of fog. So it's we get kind of that, we call it May gray, and it's just wet and cold. And May's a little bit of a tough month because everything thinks it should be summer and active, but we actually tend to get our coolest, dreariest, foggiest days. So I usually wait till that's done to bring the pancakes outside. I don't like to move them in and out because I got to take apart the slate to get to them, and I think it's a little more stressful for them. So I tend to just move them out when I know they're going to stay.
Michael would like to know how you incubate your eggs. So
I use when my Egyptians first, right before they started laying their first eggs, my neighbor was throwing away an old wine fridge. So I grabbed it off the sidewalk and put a fan in it and a thermostat and heat tape on the back wall. And so I made that, and when the heat tape comes on, the fan comes on. So they're hopefully the idea is to distribute the heat a little bit. And I incubate them. I set it about 87. And for Egyptians,
do you do a wet substrate or a dry?
I put my Egyptian eggs in I use vermiculite, and I dampen it, moisten it, to where I kind of squeeze the water out. And then I don't add any water to it through the incubation. So, and I do it open top in the incubator. I have a tray of water in the bottom, so the incubator has some humidity. But with the Egyptian eggs, the Greek eggs, and pancake eggs, I do them in open top containers, and I don't wet them through the course of incubation. They do dry out a little. The substrate dries out a little bit, but yeah, that's how I set those guys up. And I have incubated at 88 before. I got a higher percentage of females, but a lot of them also had split scutes. 86-ish tends to give me about a 50-50 mix, and I haven't had any split scutes at 86. So
the pancakes, do you I lost my train of thought. Had something to do with pancakes. I'll have to come back to it. I forgot what it was.
That's all right. And I'm by no means I have one pair that I got, my first 2 eggs out of last year, and they both hatched. So
I knew what it was. You diapause them.
Well, I don't know.
You don't. Just right in the incubator, there you go.
Yep.
Again, no run way to do it apparently.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a very small sample size. It's 2 eggs, and they both hatched. And I have 1 egg that was laid just a little bit ago this year that's in there now. So
congratulations, that's awesome.
I don't have a whole lot of experience with those guys.
You have a pretty good group of ambos too, don't you?
I do have a good group of ambos that are. I keep them inside, and inside I have. So I used to have an old shed on our property when we bought it, and I thought that'd be a great turtle room. And I actually took off part of the roof, and I put a big UV transparent acrylic panel on it, so I was getting a lot of natural sunlight. And then in the summer months, I would leave the door open, so it kind of had just natural ventilation. And then in the winter, I'd close it up and keep it a little bit warmer. And I had that building, and it worked great. That's what my Egyptians were in, my ambo ponds were in. And then last year, I tore it down, rebuilt the building. It's now a 2-story building with a partial ADU on it and a section for the animals. And so I did do a UV transparent glass skylight on it. Pretty new as far as I just moved stuff into it in October. So it seems to be working really well. Everybody seems to be kind of doing the same as they were in the old building. But so that's kind of my indoor.
Behind you, right?
Yeah, it's
That's really
well,
cool.
that's my barbecue, and then it's
And then
down
the
there at the back of the
two-story,
property.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the back of the property. Um, and so I do have a group of ambos in there. They were confiscations that came to the TSA probably in 2014, and have done really well. Produced quite a few hatchlings.
And
Yeah,
they're in the shed, not in your house, right?
yeah, they're back in the shed building.
Is
Yeah.
there anybody in the house?
Not currently. My wife's mom comes down a lot, especially now with the new baby. So, and we don't have, our house doesn't really have a great guest room. The guest room has an incubator in it, the big boa, a couple other animals, and the incubator fan's a little loud, so whenever that kicks on. So our guest room's not a great setup for an actual guest to stay. So that was part of building that back building to have a little better, converting the old shed into this building to have a little better space for guests to stay. And um, the animals are there as well, but it's very separate. So you wouldn't know that you had the animals kind of living under you if you're in there.
Is
So you
the
mentioned that
Fly
you
River back there too?
No, that's in my living room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's nice.
that's a big display tank in my living room.
It's gorgeous. That
Which
is
is-
It's really
absolutely
beautiful.
gorgeous. There it is. Look at those rainbows.
So yeah, and it's a little hard to see from that photo, but it's a 570-gallon acrylic tank with a couple logs, some rainbows, and the Fly River, and it's on the whole back wall of our living room. So it's kind of the main focal part of inside the house, which is
He's
pretty
well
cool.
fed, huh?
He is. He's about, I'd say, dinner plate size, maybe slightly bigger, and
What's your filtration setup for a tank of that size?
that one is a sump system with it's a pretty big size sump with bio balls in it, foam pad filter, and two pumps running it.
Does
That's
you don't put him outside at all during the summer?
I don't. I'm sure he would do just fine, but yeah, with the other stuff in the outdoor pond, I
Yeah.
just leave him inside.
Now you mentioned that you tend to shut in animals at night. Is that everybody, or are the other ones that are just that they're? I'm sure the flavos you don't lock up.
Yeah, no. So the flavos, I have a group of three-toed box turtles. I lock up when the Egyptians are outside. I always lock them up. Occasionally get rats here, possums. So just not so much, more for their security. And when I have the hatchlings and juveniles outside, I have a wire mesh screen top that latches and closes, so to make sure they're closed in. The other tortoises I don't lock in the summer months, the spring and into the early fall. So things like the golden Greeks, my Sulcata, Aldabra, those I leave them open and they're free to go in and out as they want when it's warmer.
Nice.
And you don't have any trouble with raccoons?
We have them in the area. I have an electric wire on my fence on a timer. So yeah, my neighbor a couple doors down has had issues with chickens, and he put an electric fence on that kind of took care of that. But unfortunately, kind of urban San Diego raccoons are part of it. But I make sure that the wire is working with the timer, and I have not had any issues with them. So.
Do you pick up your food at night just to deter that, or?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, most of it generally gets eaten, but.
Do you have any cameras so you can kind of keep an eye?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, I do have a couple of those.
Sorry about the.
Because I've heard people be like, yeah, we don't have raccoons. I'm like, are you looking? Because they don't show up and leave a calling card. They walk through between, or at least here, it's between 2 and 4 in the morning. and they usually cruise through a couple times a week.
Yeah, we do. I've occasionally seen them in our back alley. Not too often, but once in a while, going through the alley. So
Sounds like you've got a good setup with that hot wire.
it seems to be effective. Yeah, it seems to be pretty effective because there's a lot of possums in the area and skunks as well. And since we've had that, we haven't had them really in the yard either. Possums once in a while, and I think it's because they're out moving before it really gets dark. And we do have fruit trees, and so the possums come in for that.
Yeah.
And I don't. I run on a timer just at night because I've been hit by it a few times, and it's not really great feeling. So I try to not have it on during the day.
Yeah, that's my worry of getting that. I know I would accidentally shock myself pretty much constantly.
Yeah, you'll know it's there. you'll know it's there. I had a friend, we had just finished water skiing, and he went to hang a wet towel over our fence because we were cleaning the boat, our ski boat in the front yard, and he threw the wet towel over the fence that hit the wire, and it jolted him pretty good.
A surprise.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting that.
I only have a solar one, and I get hit when I mow the lawn or just going by it. I get hit every now and then. I'm like, God, I know it's there. Why don't I shut it off while I'm mowing the lawn? I don't know.
Yep.
Definitely feel it. It's a jolt.
Yeah, it reminds you it's there. And so I have that to.
Are there any species you're looking to work with in the near future that you don't already have?
Oh, I don't know. My wife, every time I go to the conference, my wife's like, you better not bring anything more home. Because she loves the animals, but she definitely.
She likes to go on vacation.
Yeah, and we're really fortunate. We have a really good pet sitter that I used to play indoor soccer with. And back when we got married and went on our honeymoon was the first time this girl pet sit for us. Ended up working for San Diego Zoo, and she's a very good pet sitter. So we are very lucky that we have someone that is experienced with animals, and so we do still get to travel a little bit and go on vacation. But yeah, I have a pretty good. I feel like I have a good balance right now, and so I'm. I don't know. I love kind of working with something new and different, and the challenge of that. I do have a small group of hingebacks that I got 2 years ago, so I've been raising them up.
Arosas or Homianas?
No. Why am I drawing a blank? Yeah, Homiana.
There you go. I haven't dipped my toe into hingebacks yet. I look at them, but I haven't done it yet.
Oh, it's just they're just cool because they're so unique and different. Actually, I have those indoors in my office, and so yeah. So I have those guys. They're getting pretty good size on them now. 2 years, they're growing pretty quick.
They have a cool. They look like throwing stars as babies. It's just so
cool.
Oh, their spikes.
Yeah, it's like
spikes on their shell, and so and I, potentially maybe some of the other Greek species, partly because they do so well here, and they're pretty cool. I like the patterns on them, and I had a Russian for a half a day 2 weeks ago, but thankfully we found the owners that lost it down the road from us.
I love Russians. You're not going to do Russians. You have the perfect climate.
Well, yeah. I found it walking in the street.
For them.
Found it walking in the street, so we were able to get it back to its owner.
Good. I have a female that was found in a state park. That she's huge. I was like, this animal was let go. Like there was no question. They just let it go. But she's doing well here. She's been here for 2 years, so haven't got eggs out of her yet, but she's happy, I guess. So as happy as she can be in New England, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, you've been keeping turtles and tortoises for quite some time. Is there anything that you would do differently knowing what you know now as far as what you keep or how you keep it?
Hmm. I don't know. Good question. I I definitely, the ones that I can have outdoors are much easier here, and so
Yeah.
you know, I'd say some of the indoor maintenance for a smaller group of animals, like the ambo ponds and stuff, is more time consuming than most everything that's outside. So I think I would, I like the ambos. I've had them a long time, but like maintaining indoor ponds, uh, it's time consuming. And I feel like even with good filtration systems, outside of the Fly River, because that's just a really big aquarium and really big system, it's hard to maintain, the same water quality, and it's harder to do that indoors. So um, I'm probably definitely not looking to like expand into more aquatics that I need to set up indoors or do things like that. It's a decent amount of work.
I can agree with that one 100%. Water is tough.
Yeah.
To do it right, water is tough. You can't just have a stagnant tub. It's not fair for the animals. So I agree with you on that.
No, and I've seen. I mean, we've had some incredible presentations of people that have set up some really elaborate stuff, but I just don't quite have the space and would be a lot. But as fortunately, I kind of mentioned when I bought this house, I kind of had an idea of some of the animals I wanted to keep, and how I wanted to set them up, and so I feel pretty fortunate that with a lot of that, I kind of was able to just kind of build the setups I wanted kind of from the you know from the start, which
What was the first enclosure you built outside?
it was my sulcatas, because my mom's comment was, "You're buying a house, good. You need to get these tortoises out of here." Um, she she had been caring for them for quite a while when I went to college, and then was living at the beach, and so she was ready to bring them to my new house, um, very quickly. So, but actually, probably the first thing was I did some work and modifications to that shed that I had, to be able to get my Egyptian set up in that, because I needed a little more room than what I had for them in the condo, so I got those things going pretty quickly. And what was interesting was I had never let them get too cold at night, and we moved in October, and I moved them into the shed not thinking it would be that cold of a night, but we had a pretty good cold spell, and they hit about 57 the first night, which was colder than I'd let them get by quite a bit, and I was a little concerned, and then the next morning the male started mating for the first time. And
Wow.
so, and what I've found with them since is the cold fall nights tend to trigger, at least for mine, breeding behavior. And my males tend to get more active and start breeding when the nights actually start cooling down. So at first I was worried. I went, was worried I let them get too cold. And then I saw the mating and I thought, no, they must be okay and happy. And yeah, so I kind of accidentally, I guess for me, found that letting them get a little bit cooler at night was a trigger when I started getting breeding activity.
Nice. So you let
And
them cool every fall now?
so I let them drop into the 50s. Yeah, I let them drop into the mid-ish 50s, for nighttime lows, and that tends to stimulate some. Still have a heat lamp on them so they warm up during the day, and that tends to stimulate some breeding behavior out of my males.
Nice.
Like I said, I don't usually see it until we start getting those colder nights.
Very interesting. I'll
So
have to try that. I'll definitely
yeah,
try that.
and what I do is I don't let them get humid and cold, so they tend to be drier and cold at night, and then in the morning, as it starts to warm up, let them get kind of foggier and more humid. Um,
That seems like the right thing to do with them anyways. Yeah. So
yeah,
I think it's important for them to have a nighttime drop anyways. just stimulates their natural behaviors. So, I'm sure I cool down a little bit, but I have them set up in my basement next to the boiler so they don't get too cool. So, but there's definitely a drop in the winter for me as well. So, but I also keep my male separate, so when I put him in, it doesn't matter when I put him in; he's ready to go.
They're ready to go.
He's 100% ready to go.
I've always kept mine in groups, and I haven't had any. They don't mate year round. Like my males tend to really just mate in the fall into kind of winter, and then when it gets warmer, my males seem to be a lot less active. So when it's warmer for us in the summer, my males tend to spend more time just kind of scraped down into the dirt and not being as active as the females. And they don't, like, it doesn't seem like my males are constantly harassing my females. The males still seem interested when the timing's right and it cools down. So I've left them in kind of the group setup, and they seem happy.
Really nice if that works for you, because that kind of saves you space to be able to keep them together.
Yeah, and it does, and they're like I said, they're larger enclosures, but yeah, it gives them a chance just to, I guess, mate kind of when they're ready.
Yeah.
And the outdoor enclosures
per breeding group.
No, I have two or three
per group.
Yeah, and I don't get the males will sometimes follow each other around, but they're not like beating each other up. So I'm sure there's some little bit of, I'm sure there's some bit of, like, I don't want to say intimidation, but it's not like they're beating each other up and trying to kill each other. They just kind of occasionally follow each other, kind of do their own thing. And
now with your Greeks, do you keep them separately?
I don't. They're in a couple groups outside as well.
I'm just interested because I have an Iberia Greek, and he is just the angriest animal you would ever want to meet. He attacks me, my shoes, my pets, the vacuum. Like, I cannot imagine him being with another tortoise and not cracking its shell.
No, my males there are a little more aggressive at ramming the females. But again, it seems to only be through the winter, a little bit into early spring. It's not like they're harassing them year round.
So it's seasonal.
So it seems to be. And I've ground hatched eggs from them.
Wow.
Occasionally. I try to find them and get them up and incubate them, but I have had a couple ground hatches out of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Them, the spotteds, and the three-toads. And I'll raise the Greeks and Egyptians together. I try to kind of make sure the Greeks aren't much bigger than the Egyptians, but I will raise them together. So that's a couple Egyptians in the bottom of the screen, I think, and a couple of Greeks at the top of the screen. I believe that was last year's hatchlings at one point.
How big a difference in weight are your Greeks to your Egyptians at hatching?
Well, like this year, I just hatched a couple Greeks that are with my hatchling Egyptians from last year, so they're a little bit smaller, and I try to do that when I do put them together.
So, you said, your Egyptians are like 5 grams when they hatch?
Yeah, when they, I didn't weigh the last ones, but I would bet they're probably twice the size.
Like 10 grams?
Yeah, they're noticeably bigger, but I didn't actually weigh them. I just hatched a couple last week, so. But I don't think I weigh most of the Egyptians just to see where they're at, and they're almost always 5. But yeah, I don't think I've weighed any of the hatching Greeks. Okay.
The Tripletanias that I hatched, they eat, man, and they just have been growing so well for me. Considering the parents were such a nightmare to get started with, but when they hatched, they were probably like 3 or 4 grams bigger than an Egyptian, and it's night and day now. Like, they are way bigger now. Like, and they hatched around the same time. So it's amazing how much faster they're growing.
My Egyptians grow pretty quick. My hatchlings, I don't have any like size charts in front of me to kind of give you, but they seem to be, they're very active eaters, and they grow pretty quick.
Nice. I think what else I had for questions. I wrote down a bunch of stuff, but I think I'm asking them as I go.
Yeah, and we're coming up on the hour. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about?
Wow. Yeah, I guess an hour goes fast, huh?
It does.
No, I don't. Yeah, it was fun to get to talk to you guys. I would encourage people who haven't been to the conference. If you haven't been, come. It's a good time. It's good people. I would encourage people that like turtles and tortoises and enjoy working with them. Look at supporting organizations like the Turtle Conservancy and the TSA. They're doing really, really good work and very dedicated people there. So it's nice. Both of them have had people come to a couple of the conferences and give some great presentations. And I just encourage people to work together, support organizations like that. And yeah, it's been cool to see some of the work people have done with Egyptians and Mark with the Triplotania and just some of the other, really unique animals that people are working together to do some great things with. So it's always exciting. It's funny. I always leave the conference kind of rejuvenated to go home and make my enclosures better and, look at ways I can, continue to improve stuff. And I think that's important. Just look at, continuing to look at, sharing ideas with people and looking at what's working and, how we can work together to keep having some of these really good successes with some of the animals that are unfortunately kind of disappearing from the wild and aren't doing too great in their native habitats. So
when are you going to do a presentation for TTPG?
I don't know.
Enclosures are worth it, man.
So here's my pup Ryder. He just came out to say hi. So yeah, one day it'd be fun.
Every time I see someone else's house setups, I get ideas. Your backyard is amazing. I might be picking your brain on how you set up those ponds.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody out there, feel free to give me an email or a phone call or text. And if you're ever in the Southern California area, San Diego area, let me know. If my mother-in-law's not staying in the building, I might have a place for you.
Michael had a really good question, and I think we were supposed to bring this up earlier. Any tips to help a keeper fireproof their enclosures or less prone to fires?
That's right. I did talk to Michael about that last week when I was up there.
I think that's a good tip for all of us. So we'd love to hear if you have any tips or something like that we should be aware of, or don't use frayed extension cords, I'm sure, and power strips. But what do you got?
Well, extension cords are a big one. I would say electrical in general. That is one thing I surprisingly have had a number of, through work, structure fires that were animal enclosure related. A couple, unfortunately, that caused complete loss of the home, loss of the people's animals. And so really watch your electrical systems. And extension cords are part of it, but we tend to put a lot of things in one outlet because we put, reptile keepers, you put 6 or 7 enclosures in one area, and, you have one outlet to power them all. So really watch the multi-plug adapters overloading your circuits. If you're designing something, have an electrician run some extra circuits for you so that you can split the load to multiple circuits. The other thing is really think about the heat that our heat lamps are generating. And, it's easy to get substrate close to those. It's easy to get a tortoise that pushes a bunch of hay up underneath the heat lamp that's already pretty close. So really watch that. I'd say most of the ones I've seen are overloaded electrical or improper electrical. Really watch extension cords, but also watch like putting weight. I had a aquarium that was on a cord, a fire we responded to that caused the cord to short out from the constant weight over time of the aquarium sitting on it. And over time, those wires degrade, break down, short out, and that was a pretty significant incident. So really watch having things on cords, weight on cords. If you can have someone come in and run extra outlets for you, run wiring through conduit, do some of that stuff. Anything you invest in your electrical system is going to pay off. That's, I think definitely one of the more common issues we see. And the other thing is, and I know we're kind of up against 6 o'clock, but I really recommend watching things like those flimsy lamp stands that, the aquarium sits on that just has an open hook at the top. Something I've tried to do is make sure that my heat lamps are mounted to something secure. We get earthquakes here, and I think about it, but we had a condo fire where an earthquake knocked over a heat lamp into a sofa that then smoldered, and then a couple hours later, that caused the fire. So pets, other things knock over those stands. They're generally kind of flimsy, and so I really don't like those because it's easy to knock them over and get heat generated that way. So those are a couple of things I had.
Very good tips. We appreciate that. And we should be listening to it as well.
Sure. Yeah. But again, I can't stress enough, like, your electrical system, especially older buildings, they're not designed to run 6 or 7 mercury vapor bulbs off of one outlet. Where you're using extension cord, using multi-plug adapters. I've done it before. I remember, I look back now, I'm surprised I didn't burn my parents' house down when I was a teenager. Just remembering when I was breeding rosy boas and how much stuff I had in my bedroom and 8 things going into one outlet. So I've definitely done it, and
I get it. My brother's an electrician, so my basement is wired well.
There you go. And like I said, that should give you a lot of peace of mind, of just knowing that you've got a system that will handle the load you're running on it. Yeah. And again, that's probably the one thing that I think if you're kind of setting up something new, or if you have a lot of enclosures going, is if you get a chance to have an electrician come out and just kind of look at your setup. I was kind of fortunate we were building the buildings. I was able to talk to my contractor about exactly what I wanted, what I thought we were going to be running. And so we are very over-circuited for what we have, which is good.
Same. Very, very much the same. So I probably could put like 10 refrigerators down there right now, actually.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to see you in November. And do we have any announcements we're supposed to make, Wendy? I don't think Mike told us.
I don't think so. I think that was it. Again, it was wonderful talking to you. Thanks for taking time out of your sleepless days to come talk to us. And if you want to hang out for a minute when we
hang on real quick.
Offline.
There's Ashley and Maddie.
Oh,
say hi. Maddie.
Maddie, hi, Ashley.
Maddie, look this way. Maddie.
Oh, so
Mom's
sweet.
like, hey, it's your turn. I'm done.
Yeah.
So, yep, that was little Maddie.
Nice. Hopefully she'll sleep tonight.
She's been sleeping all day, which makes me really nervous.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I'm like, you're just resting up so you can scream all night.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you to everyone in the audience. It was wonderful spending time with you, and we'll catch up with everybody next month.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was nice to talk to you guys. And like I said, anybody's welcome to get my number for any of you guys and give me a call or text, or and if you're in San Diego area, stop by.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Harley.
Yep, take care.